Everyone, and welcome to week 3, if you can believe it. We are flying right through this. I just wanted to create a very short video just kind of going over what we're doing this week. Again, praising you for your excellent job in discussions. I will tell you, I don't comment on every single person's discussion post, but I do try to comment on several throughout the week. So please don't get upset if I don't comment on yours. It doesn't mean I didn't think that yours was wonderful or terrific. It's just a time constraint thing on my part. But I do check them frequently throughout the week just to make sure that the discussions are going. And as I said, I like to comment on several of them throughout the week, and I always try to post my own comments on them when I grade them. So I just wanted to point out one quick thing too. Up here, just as a reminder, this little email envelope up here, this is where you have like the D2L email system. So as we progress through the semester, and every now and then someone forgets to do an assignment, or maybe they're not participating in the discussions like they should by commenting on the 2 peer replies, starting this week especially, because this is when I sometimes notice students accidentally forgetting something. What I do is I just kind of send out like an automated email, just like, hey, you're missing this. Do you mind getting it in as soon as you possibly can? So when that happens, you'll see, if you get a message from me, there'll be like the little orange dot like there is on that bell notification there. Up there, that just means you've got a message, probably from me. And as I said, it's not a big deal. I know a lot of you, this is your very first online class, and online class can be a little bit overwhelming, and sometimes we forget things. I took several online classes throughout my academic career, and yes, there were times it would be Monday morning, and it would be like, oh, I forgot to do X, Y, Z. And it's just learning that time management and what works for you. So no worries at all. So this week in your Dropbox, or if you go down here to, wrong button, your lovely calendar, we've got you have some AA assignments due. So you have 2 asynchronous assignments, and they're both basically, let me switch it to student view so that way you can see it, not from my perspective, but yours. They're both going to be essay examples and just how to possibly do a peer review. And I wanted to point out a special thing about asynchronous assignment week 3.2. So every year MTSU allows its instructors to submit student example papers from what we feel were exceptionally good, and there's actually awards students can win. 2 years ago, I actually had 2 of my dual enrollment students from Siegel win writing awards at MTSU, and they actually won some money. One won $300, the other one won $200. But this is a link right here from an essay that won one of those awards. So you wonder why we're doing a specific literacy narrative. It's because that's something at MTSU we feel is really important as students, is to understand why you have the relationship with literacy that you do. And so actually across most of the 1010 courses, the first assignment is a literacy narrative. And so this is someone's literacy narrative. And as I said, it's an award-winning narrative, and while you're reading it, I mentioned this in the directions, but I just don't want you to overly compare yourself to this person, all right? This is a person who went through several revisions, more than likely, because most MTSU 1010 courses are very heavy revision classes. So right now you're working on rough drafts, so please do not compare your own writing to a final copy, because I don't want you to feel bad, because there's a great potential in your paper to be an award-winning paper potentially. But, our rough drafts usually aren't our best efforts. And so I just don't want you to be discouraged when you read this particular one. Just kind of giving you a heads up on that. And also, if you go to the content tab, I added, well, actually it was already there. But if you go to the rubrics, I do have your narrative rubric, just kind of what I'm going to be looking for in this particular paper. So if you go, really what I'm looking for is making sure that you've got sentence variety, that your word choices. Now remember, for this particular paper, your audience is an audience of your peers. So I'm not necessarily looking for this super formal language, because if I see that, I'm going to be like, okie doke, you're writing this for me and not for the audience that I asked for. So, as I said, for this one, it's okay to be a little bit more casual. Like, I'm not looking for you to try to be impressive. I might even call you out on that, going, okay, no one talks like that. I did have a student a few years ago take a thesaurus, the synonym or the synonym function in Word, and change like every other word in their paper for it to sound more impressive. Guys, there are over 100,000 words in the English language, and we don't use the majority of them. And she has switched it to some words that I had never heard of. And so just be careful for that. I am going to be looking for mechanics, though. Do you have a bunch of misspellings? Are you punctuating things correctly? Using possessives versus, being plural or whatever. And capitalization, because sometimes students don't realize what should be capitalized and what shouldn't. And guys, if I see a mechanical error, I'm going to point it out and you can revise it to make it better and still get your A, okay? So don't worry about that. Organization. Now for this paper, I did mention that you can kind of play around with chronology if you want to. Sometimes it's really interesting to kind of start in the middle of the story, then work your way back to that point, or start like Andrew Stanton did in his video, start at the end and work your way to the beginning. You don't have to do that. It's just that, can I follow it? So if you're wanting to kind of play around with chronology in your paper, especially, make sure you're using good transition words. Like if you decide to start in the middle of your story with the action in your next paragraph, is it very obvious that you have gone back to the beginning? You could use some sort of transition like, how this point came to be started when I was given an assignment. That would just be a really good transition to use maybe in that second paragraph, just so that way we can understand, oh, there was a shift in time and we've gone back to the beginning here. And then it kind of can progress organically if it needs to. So if I notice that there are some transitions that aren't working, again, I will point them out and we can fix them. Okay? So, or you can even use some signal phrases like, when this all started, or now that I was at the midpoint of this assignment. Especially, those are really good transitions to use when you're talking about reading assignments. I have a lot of students that like to talk about AR, the accelerated reader assignments from elementary school, or their summer reading programs that they had to do in high school and how that kind of sucked the love of reading out of them. Again, just as long as I'm kind of getting some of those words and phrases, I might even post a little something on transition words and phrases for narratives, kind of at the midpoint of this week in our midpoint check-in, just to kind of emphasize just making sure you're doing those transitions smoothly. Is it creativity? Is it interesting? Did it capture the audience's attention? Were you able to make a connection? And I think it's your discussion. You're actually going to be reading a story from someone that I know. I actually know this guy. And it's not a literacy narrative, but the narrative I feel like is really good in his descriptions. And there is some discussion on whether or not it's good or not, especially because he does kind of jump around in the timeline a little bit. But does it capture your attention? Was he able to make it relatable? And that's the same thing that you want to do with your audience. Were you able to kind of make that connection with the audience and go, oh, I know what that feels like. Oh, I know what it's like to have my heart pounding in my chest. Or I know that feeling of when I just read a really, really good book, that sense of contentment and happiness. Were you able to kind of convey that in your paper? And the prompt, is it following the prompt? Is it the 2 to 4 pages? Did you double space it? That's the kind of things I'm going to be looking for. Does it tell 1 or 2 stories? You're not giving me that literacy autobiography. You're concentrating on those 1 or 2 stories that really makes it a good paper. So this is your, as I said, excuse me, sorry, your rubric. It's been a long week, guys. Sorry, we have been hit with illness at my house, and I apologize for that. Sorry, and it's just, yeah, my 2-year-old came home with his very first daycare cold, and I caught it, but that's fine. And now one of my other kiddos has it. He's actually upstairs. We normally do attend a church service on Sunday, but this is Sunday morning and I am at home with him while he is recuperating. So all that to say, I will be probably very available this week because I might have to stay at home 1 or 2 days from work, kind of depending on how he does. But I am always here if y'all have any questions. If email, text, call. If you want to arrange a Zoom as you're starting to put this essay together, and you're like, hey, I want to be able to share screen or whatever, you can also email me like your rough drafts. Let's say you start working on this paper and you get just a little bit stuck, and you're just really struggling with either maybe how to do a transition or that first paragraph, like not really sure if it's working or not. You can email me your rough draft in process and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have any advice? And we can either discuss it on Zoom. I can just email you back, whatever you want to do and whatever you feel more comfortable doing. Just let me know. It is my job to help you do your best in this class, so you are not inconveniencing me. I have to emphasize this by asking for my help. So I will be here and around a lot because, again, the one that's actually sick right now, we're going to be missing our baseball practices and all this other stuff. So I'm actually going to probably have a little bit more free time this week. So again, as you get started on this, just let me know if you need anything. And again, thank you for all of your hard work so far. It is really appreciated.